Let us look into the other symbolism within these cards and find what other information they hold for us. First, let us return to the Magician, who is symbolic for the divine male twin soul in the ethereal form. Both the Magician and High Priestess cards are showing the divine male and female twin souls have not yet manifest into their physical state. They still only exist in their ethereal form. We see the Magician wears a red cape, and this red material is symbolic for the divine male twin soul. And if we look to the High Priestess, she is wearing blue. We will often see these red and blue coloured garments representing the divine male or female twin souls depicted in religious paintings. The divine twin souls are often shown wearing these red and blue garments. However, sometimes they are worn on another person to represent the divine twin souls, or even as just material floating or resting nearby. However, whenever the symbols of red and blue cloth are depicted in a painting, they are representing the divine twin souls. The Magician stands behind a square table, symbolizing that even in the ethereal form, he is more connected to the foundational characteristics, and this is because he has more of a connection to our sun, the manifester of the physical plane. Now let us look to the High Priestess card in more detail. We see that she sits on a throne with the opened Torah on her lap, and as discussed in the last video, this is symbolic for her ability to make coherent and rational sense of divine knowledge, which the Torah represents. The curtain behind her symbolizes the veil between the physical and ethereal planes, and she is positioned in front of it, showing she has more of a connection to the ethereal plane, and due to this, she is also more connected to the divine. In Michelangelo's painting called The Creation of Adam, we see God's arm is around the divine female twin soul, who in this instance is being represented by Lilith. This is symbolic for the divine female twin soul being closer to God and the divine. We can also see the red and blue cloth symbolic of the divine male and female twin souls being depicted within this painting. However, this connection to the divine is also represented in the 8 pomegranates shown on the curtain. 8 is symbolic for the immortality of the divine female twin soul. And when we look deeper into the symbolic meaning of the pomegranates, we find they are also connected to God consciousness and Orion. Let us first look to where they are mentioned in 1 Kings 7, verses 13 to 22. These verses tell of the pomegranates depicted on the 2 pillars standing at the entrance of King Solomon's temple, which represents God consciousness. These are the same pillars also depicted on the High Priestess card, which stand for Jachin and Boaz. These 2 pillars are representing the gateway to the God consciousness of Orion, and this gateway can only be accessed through the heart, for the gates only open to those who are deemed worthy of immortality. If we look to verse number 20, it says, "The capitals of both pillars, above the bowl-shaped part next to the network, were the 200 pomegranates in rows all around." Now, if we look to the number keys we have from ancient Egypt, 20 is shown to us as one of the numbers connected to the heart. However, you will also note that the number 8 is related to the heart too, as is the sun. And we see a cross is also depicted on the chest of the High Priestess. This is also showing the connection of the sun and the heart. It is also interesting to note that the heart of a human fetus beats for the first time on the 20th day. There is also a connection between the 200 pomegranates on the 2 pillars and the sun, for there were 200 days from the Venus transit on the 5th of June in 2012 to the December 21st solstice. As discussed in the first video, this is when Horus, the new sun, was birthed. The High Priestess also wears the headdress of Isis, who is also symbolic of Venus. And we can see that in the paintings where Mary is depicted with the pomegranate, she is holding Jesus as a child. The pomegranate and the divine female twin soul are also mentioned in another verse in the Bible, with this quote from the Song of Solomon 4:3. Thy lips are like a thread of scarlet, and thy speech is comely. Thy temples are like a piece of pomegranate within thy locks. We can clearly see that he is speaking of the divine female twin soul. And if we look to Lilith and Mary Magdalene, who are symbolic of the divine female soul, there is mention always made of their beautiful long hair. And the verse 4:3 equals 7, which also equates to the ethereal form. There is also a strong connection to the divine female twin soul and God consciousness in Orion within the Greek and Roman mythology regarding the goddess Hera, who is directly related to Zeus, being one of his three sisters. In Greek mythology, it is Zeus who is symbolic of Orion and God consciousness. Hera is often portrayed with the pomegranate in her hand, and the cow, lion, and peacock are also sacred to her. So once again here with Hera, we see the female twin soul and a connection to the peacock, symbolic of the changing light, bringing in higher consciousness and with it divine knowledge. However, with the mythology of Hera, there is a direct connection to Orion. For in the Orion story, Hera cast Pomegranate Side, an ancient city of Antalya, into dim Erebus for daring to rival Hera's beauty. This is speaking of the waxing and waning of consciousness and the access to divine knowledge within the divine female twin soul that comes with the new light from Orion. There is also a connection to the pomegranate and divine knowledge in the Jewish tradition, for the pomegranate is seen as a symbol for righteousness, and it is said that the 613 seeds of the pomegranate correspond to the 613 mitzvot, or commandments of the Torah. Even today, many Torah scrolls are stored when not in use with a pair of hollow silver pomegranates placed over the two upper scroll handles. So we can see there is a clear connection within this symbolism with the pomegranates, divine knowledge, and the divine female twin soul. Finally, at the foot of the divine female twin soul, we see the crescent moon is being represented. And again, this is because it is the moon that governs the ethereal plane and births the souls onto the physical realm. Hence, the moon is shown at her foot, close to the ground. And as with everything birthed into existence, this is done with the female energy. And as such, this is also symbolized within the moon shown here on the High Priestess card. We should also note the number on this card and the way it is depicted, which are in Roman numerals. If we look at this number symbolically, it can also represent the number 11. Again, if we look to the number key we have from ancient Egypt, the number 11 is the number connected to the moon and the navel chakra. Edgar Cayce stated the soul burst into the physical container through the Leiden energy point, which was located at the navel area. And we also see this in the inscription of the great high priest of ancient Egypt called Nepaneteru, which says, "The West seeks to hide from him who follows his heart. The heart is a god, the stomach is its shrine." So we see there is a connection to the High Priestess, the moon, and the birthing of souls to the navel energy point, and the symbolic representation of the number 2 on this card also confirms this once again. We know we are first and foremost ethereal beings who merely spend time birthed into our physical containers onto the material realm. We experience our incarnations on this realm between the two manifested planes for a period of 26,000 years, which is one precessional cycle. As with all things that exist in our universe, everything is a microcosm and macrocosm of the other, a fractal within a fractal. And as Hermetics tells us, this manifests on all the planes, physical, spiritual, and mental. However, the cycle we experience as physical beings incarnating on the physical plane is a smaller microcosm to the cycle of our ethereal self existing on the ethereal plane. This is why some may look at the time frame of 26,000 years as quite a large period of time, and that is because it is being viewed from a physical perspective. However, if you look at it from an ethereal perspective, 26,000 years is not such a long time, and just as our physical bodies go through the cycle of death and resurrection, so does our ethereal self. However, the rebirth of the soul is based upon what is written in one's heart, for the returning light will illuminate the good within each soul. In the ancient Egyptian weighing of the heart ceremony, the heart was to be as light as a feather. However, in this instance, light does not just equate to weight, but also the light of Osiris, Orion. As we saw in the previous video regarding the Fool card, the feather is symbolic for Orion, God consciousness, and also the changing angles of light. We are birthed from God consciousness in our true state of being in our ethereal form. And as shown in the Fibonacci sequence and golden mean, we then split into male and female upon creation. Now that we have been manifest from God's mind, we are bestowed with physical attributes representing the container in which our ethereal being will be birthed into. These attributes are symbolized by the cards number 3, the Empress, and 4, the Emperor. So let us now look into what the symbolism reveals in these two cards about the male and female divine twin souls. Let us first start with looking at where these two cards are placed on the Fibonacci sequence and golden mean spiral. We can see the first twin soul to manifest with the physical attributes is the Empress card, which is card number 3 and represents the divine female twin soul who is first to manifest with physical attributes due to her female creation energy on the physical plane. However, this is also because the twin souls are mirrors to each other, and we will often see this represented in the religious depictions of them also. So the order in which they are manifested into their physical forms is the mirror to the order they were created in the ethereal. Let us now look at how these cards relate to the numbers within the golden mean spiral and Fibonacci sequence. We can see the divine female twin soul equates to the number 2, and the Emperor is now connected to the number 3. However, if we look at the golden mean section where the Emperor is placed, it encompasses all the other sections, and due to it equating to the number 3 within the Fibonacci sequence, this is representing the Trinity held within this whole golden mean section. So not only do we see the 3 being depicted in the Empress tarot card connecting her to the divine Trinity, we now see it connected to the Emperor due to his placement within the sequence. So with the Empress equating to a 2 on the Fibonacci sequence and then correlating that to the number keys from ancient Egypt, the number 2 relates to 20 and the heart. And we also see the white heart clearly represented on the Empress card. This is symbolic of her connection with the divine and her ethereal self through the good intentions of a pure heart. With the Emperor being connected to the number 3 in the Fibonacci sequence, if we look to the number keys we have from ancient Egypt, this number connects him to the navel chakra. The energy aspects within this chakra, when related to the number 3 instead of 11, are more connected to the sun. And there is a very strong connection to the sun and this chakra, and this is why it is also called the solar plexus. If we look to the Hindu texts, this energy point at the navel is called the Manipura. And according to the Hindu tradition, this chakra is the 3rd primary chakra and is called the City of Jewels. The Manipura symbol for this chakra is depicted by a downward pointing red triangle. The area inside of the triangle is called the fire region, and the yellow circle in which it is situated is showing a connection to the sun energy. And as the triangle is pointing down, this is showing this energy is manifest below onto the earthly plane within the male twin soul. This triangle is also representing the Trinity birthed onto the physical plane, for within every soul is a part of the other as well as the divine. The 10 petals are showing the infinite cycle of the souls, rebirthed into the physical bodies and reuniting with God consciousness, as 10 is an infinite number. For if you divide it by the Trinity, you will get an infinite number, 3.3333 to infinity. We can see the number 10 is also represented in the Kabbalah Tree of Life diagrams by alchemists Kircher and Robert Flood, who show 10 spikes or rays at the top and bottom of the Tree of Life to indicate that this cycle of birth and rebirth of the soul is infinite. The Hindu texts also relate the fire region within the triangle to the god Vani, who is shining red with 4 arms and is seated on a ram. So we see a connection to the god Vani, the ram, and this chakra, and the ram's head's on the Emperor card. We also see that the god Vani has 4 arms, and let us not forget that even though the Emperor is in the number 3 position in the Fibonacci sequence, he is still also a number 4 in the tarot. The stone chair he sits upon is also representing a square, which also equates to the number 4 and symbolizes the foundational and earthly instinctive attributes he brings down with him. As mentioned previously, these foundational attributes are also the reason why the male soul is the first to forget his divinity as we move into a time of lower consciousness within the cycle. Once the memory of their true self is lost, they use their foundational attributes to take power and take control over the physical on the material plane. However, this is a result of the waning light of consciousness, so should not be viewed as evil or negative. It is just a part of the cycle of consciousness we exist in. The seed mantra for this chakra is the syllable Ram, and within the bindu or dot above this mantra resides the god Rudra, and he is sometimes described as red or white with 3 eyes and a beard. Rudra is one of the names used for the god Shiva, so we can see a direct connection to Rudra and Shiva, the divine male twin soul in the ethereal form. So we see that Rudra represents the foundational and physical aspects of Shiva and embodies the unpredictable and destructive earthly elements within the male twin soul. However, Rudra was also a healer, so we see these renewing forces are also present within these foundational characteristics of the divine male twin soul. Rudra is also said to be the early form of Shiva. This is symbolic of the divine male soul evolving from his physical form into his ethereal self, represented by Shiva. Now let us look to what the Emperor holds in his hand. We see in his left hand he is symbolizing the male and female with the Ankh, with both the circle and rod being depicted. His immortality is also symbolized within the Ankh, as it was symbolic for the key of eternal life. The orb in his right hand is known as the globus crucica and was said to show one who had complete dominion over all. In ancient times, the orbs were held by priests as a symbol of the sun and its power. However, the real truth has been obscured, and the orb is actually symbolic for the receptacle of the divine knowledge he holds within him. This orb has had many changes in the way it has been depicted throughout the ages. However, we can see in this very early depiction of the Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa, dated 1188, that he holds the symbol of the orb as a circle and cross, and below it is a book, indicating knowledge being brought down to the physical plane from the higher consciousness in the light of Orion, transmuted through the sun. We also see in this painting by Leonardo da Vinci that the orb is clear, representing that the Holy Spirit that brings in higher consciousness is not definable. The 5 gems on his crown show that his divinity is in his destiny, for the number 5 relates to the agreement or covenant with the divine made by the soul. For the soul's potential is known to itself and God consciousness before it is manifest onto the physical plane. In James 1:12 it states, "Blessed is the man that endures trial, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to them that love him." We also see this Bible verse is 1:12, which equates to the number 4. Once again, the Emperor Tarot card is a number 4. Now let us look to the Empress card in more detail. Firstly, we see that the earthly plane is not shown as rugged and harsh as it was on the Emperor card. And this is because the divine female soul has a natural connection to the higher energies of Mother Earth, symbolized by the 7 tree peaks. For the number 7 is connected to the ethereal and higher states of being. The 8 pearls on her necklace are symbolic of her immortality. She has 11 stars on her crown, and this is showing the connection to the creation aspect within her on the material plane, as 11 is connected to the manifesting of souls onto the physical plane. She also holds her scepter higher, again showing her connection to the ethereal. The scepter is also representing the rod and the male twin soul, and the circle at the end of the pillow is symbolic of the ring and the female twin soul. We also see at the top of her scepter there is the same orb that was on the Emperor card, symbolic of the divine knowledge he holds within him. The illumination of divine knowledge within the female twin soul is symbolized by the pomegranates on her gown. These were depicted on the curtain in the previous card, the High Priestess, but now she wears them on her garment. These pomegranates are showing the female twin soul's understanding of the Torah and the divine knowledge which it represents. She also sits upon a white hart, showing again she is close to the divine. And we see the symbol for Venus is shown within the heart. Aphrodite is a goddess connected to Venus, and her other symbols are the dove and the pomegranate. The dove is symbolic of Venus bringing in the light of God consciousness, and we can see this is represented with the dove in religious paintings, showing the Holy Spirit or light that brings with it the illumination of divine knowledge. Aphrodite's symbols also included wheat, and we can see wheat is depicted at the bottom of the Empress card. In Christian mythology, wheat was symbolic for the children of truth. And in Matthew 13:24, Jesus said, "The good seed, the wheat, are the children of the kingdom, the product of truth, which the sower had sowed." On the ancient Egyptian number keys, we see that 13 is at the crown chakra and represents the death of the physical container to reunite with God consciousness. 2 plus 4 is 6, and 6 represents the physical form. This is showing truth is the seed one needs to sow to return to God consciousness from the physical form. And again in this verse, Psalms 55, "The wheat are the true church, gathered with the sickle of truth. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice." 5 and 5 are symbolic of the agreement or covenant with the divine made by the twin souls before they are manifest onto the physical plane. And 5 plus 5 equals 10, which is symbolic of them honoring this covenant and living in truth, being their key to this infinite cycle and their immortality. So now we have unlocked the symbolism within these 2 cards. Let us move on to the next card, the Hierophant. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This is the 6th Hermetic principle of cause and effect. So there is no such thing as chance. Your destiny is applied to you to test your soul and see if you are worthy of your immortality. And this is a covenant and agreement each soul accepted. We see this application of cause and effect to our existence also related in the Kolbrin Bible, where it states, "Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey, the destination being his destiny. He may choose whether to go by way of a river or by way of a plain, whether across mountains or through forests, on foot or horseback, slow or fast. And whatever befalls because of this decision is fate. If a tree falls on him because he chose the forest path, it was fated. For luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choice, which may be good or bad, but it cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. It is when our tests are done at the end of a cycle, and we have seen through these tests in truth with strength of heart, the soul is rewarded with immortality. It is then the soul can be at rest and there can be peace within our hearts. As it says in Psalms 116:7, "Return unto your rest, O my soul, for the Lord has dealt bountifully with you." 116 equals 8, which equates to immortality on the Egyptian number key, and 7 equals the ethereal soul. The Hindu texts relay this chakra point is where the nectar, Amrita, drips down from the bindu, symbolized on the mandala, and is split into either a pure form or a poison. However, it is also known as the purification center, so therefore symbolic of redemption. Amrita is a Sanskrit word that literally means immortality and is often referred to in Hindu texts as nectar. The word's earliest occurrence is found in the Rig Veda, where it is also referred to as soma, the drink which bestows immortality upon the gods. The Greeks called this nectar ambrosia, and it carries the same meaning. So we can see this energy point is very important as it determines whether we continue this cycle of the soul and experience immortality and zep-tepi, or whether we become accustomed to the taste of the poison and experience death and decay. A bindu dot in a mandala or mantra is symbolic for the manifesting point of that chakra. So we see this chakra is very much tied to the immortality of the soul. And it is not only in the mental projection of our will from the third eye chakra, but the expression of it onto the material plane that grants or denies our immortality. This chakra is also associated with the element of ether, and as such shows the connection between the third eye chakra that is situated completely in the ethereal, and the heart chakra, which is our energy point that is anchored between the ethereal and physical plane. At the bottom of the card, we see the male and female twin souls are depicted about to take their covenant with the divine. The male soul is on the left, and we can see that he is now wearing on his shirt the flowers that were above his head in the magician card. The female twin soul on the right has the blue and white flowers on her shirt, symbolic for her blue dress and white pillar in the High Priestess card. These pillars are also represented on the Hierophant card and the Justice card, for again, they are symbolic of the veil between the physical and ethereal planes. And on the Hierophant card, they are showing that the energetic force of the Hierophant stands between the two pillars and represents the conscious acknowledgement of this pledge with the divine before entry to the material plane is granted. On top of the pillars, we see a flourish on each pole. This is representing the ethereal form of the divine male and female twin souls. They are clearly depicted differently to ensure a distinction between them is made. The Hierophant points his two fingers upwards to indicate both the twin souls are answerable only to the divine. However, the two crossed keys show each soul's destinies are also entwined, and they sit in front of the Hierophant, showing that the covenant with each twin soul is also overseen by God. On each side of the keys, we see a disc divided into 4 parts, equating to 8 pieces. 8 represents their immortal soul and shows that their immortality is bound within their covenant to the divine. So now we have 8 shown on each side of the key, representing the immortal soul of the male and female twin souls. However, if we look on the shoes of the Hierophant, we have our third 8. So now we have the 2 immortal twin souls represented, and the third 8 is symbolic of their immortality being connected to the Hierophant and their covenant. We also see the discs can represent 6, which is symbolic of the physical form, and when we add them together, we again get 12. And let us not forget that the Fibonacci sequence also equates to a 12. As mentioned previously, 12 is symbolic of the divine male and female twin soul before they have reunited back with God consciousness. We also see 12 depicted on the front of the Hierophant's garments with the 3 crosses. Together, this equates to 24. If we divide 24 by the Trinity, we get 8 once again. He holds the triple cross, or otherwise known as the papal cross. The 3 bars of the cross represent the Trinity of the divine and the male and female twin soul. We see the Hierophant holds this cross in his hand, symbolic for the covenant he holds between them all. His crown with 18 spikes is depicting that it is through this covenant they will reach the reunification with the divine and transform into the divine number of 9. And finally, we see again in this verse 2 Corinthians 5:10, it states, "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may be recompensed for things done in his body, according to what he has done, whether it be good or bad." We can see the covenant represented in this verse by the number 5, and again the infinite cycle of the twin souls and their covenants are represented in the number 10. So now we understand the Hierophant, and that he is not a religious figure, but instead is symbolic of our own individual soul agreements with the divine.
Picking up the tarot, oh yeah, what are my friends going to think, and oh, isn't it, haven't I heard that Aleister Crowley's the devil's own, and haven't I heard that Man Blavatsky's the devil's own, and the tarot, oh Jesus, I can't touch it. In other words, knowing nothing about it except what you've gleaned from this exoteric, crazy, mad-ass world, which is so full of crime, debauchery, and loathsome features. But now we're experts in knowing that the tarot's evil, right? What can you do with people like that, right?
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's just the product of little learning. It's not voodoo. It's not witchcraft. It's not evil. It's incredibly it's a therapy. It's a form of therapy. At the most primitive level, it works like any psychological test, like the Rorschach ink blot test, or the Myers-Briggs test, and many of these other tests. Except that it takes the temperature of your psyche.